Welcome to the Rialto Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a revenue acceleration series interview where we talk to seven-figure B2B business owners and their growth-focused executives who are actively trying to grow their business and get to the next level. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly so that you can learn from their experience. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing, where we believe marketing shouldn't be difficult and it definitely shouldn't be guesswork. I am super excited to have Brian Strong from 10 Hats with me today. Brian, welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely, man. We got all kinds of good stuff to talk about. You guys have grown a lot over the last 5-6 years, tons of stuff that you're going to share. So I'm excited to dig into that with you. But before we do that, I want to ask you just a few quick rapid fire questions if you're ready to jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, man. So very quickly, what do you do? How long have you been doing it?
So I'm the CEO of 10 Hats. 10 Hats is, I joined 10 Hats, it'll be 5.5 years ago now. But I've been in the MSP space for 20 years, since 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been in the space for a while.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of changes in the space over 20 years.
Yes, absolutely.
What's the most important lesson you've learned?
The most important lesson I learned, especially going through the 10 Hats, is like, once you have a formula and you know the formula works, use it. And so it was one of those, what we learned in the first MSP, we kind of thought we got lightning in a bottle. But with the second one, we've grew faster and bigger, through that, using that same formula.
Yeah. As long as it continues to work, why not leverage it?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's kind of one of those, if somebody, from Chick-fil-A came and said, "Hey, let's open a chicken store," you probably listen to it.
Yeah. Growing a company is hard. Any of us that have done it know that. Do you have any kind of mantra or something motivational that you say to yourself, share with your team to push through those times where you guys are coming up against challenges or roadblocks?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so, it's one of those, I always start with the end in mind, is like, where are we going? Right. And so if we know where we're going, when we hit these, speed bumps, or, sometimes are much bigger than that in the road, we're going, hey, yes, this is temporary. This is on the path. But you got to remember, we've got, this is where we're going, and we have to get through this time just to get to that place.
Yeah. So keeping that goal and vision and where you want to go top of mind helps you kind of just not take your eyes off the prize. It's like, hey, this is a speed bump along the way to here.
Yeah, because this time will pass, and they all do, and we got to work through this. And especially, as growing as fast as we did, there was all kinds of challenges. We broke all kinds of stuff. But if you know that you're trying to hit this goal and you're moving towards that goal, that all these challenges are just part of the journey.
Yeah. I love this too shall pass, because I leverage that on the good and the bad. Like, the good doesn't last forever and the bad doesn't last forever. It goes both ways. So
yeah, that's exactly right. So it's, if it's going too well for a while, you're like, uh-oh, something's about to happen, right?
When is something going to happen? So I know you had touched on, the growth that you guys experienced have experienced with 10 Hats. You've been there 5.5 years. You helped grow from 2 million to 19 million without acquisitions, which is almost unheard of in the MSP space. What had to change first to make this kind of organic growth possible?
Yeah. So when I joined 10 Hats, they were, still working on, trying to lead with referrals and, doing all those kind of different things. And they weren't quite working. So, what we had to do is we had to put an outside sales engine in place. And so that's kind of my forte. I was in sales when I first join the MSP space, and it's really, getting people out in the market, making connections, doing, from a professional standpoint, making connections, doing meetings, doing the activity, consistently projecting on the pipeline, and teaching and guiding them all the way through that. And just a relentless, effort on, having first time appointments and making sure the whole process of we lead the process instead of letting the prospect lead us through the process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just all that discipline that we kind of put in place that was what really was the catalyst for us growing.
So were they primarily growing through referral before that?
They were trying to, they were a typical $2 million MSP, right? That had grown with through referrals and word of mouth. But yeah, so that was the, kind of what they were going after. And then they were doing some cold calling, right? And, cold calling can work, but, the close ratio on cold calling is like 1% to 2%. And if you look at all the data now over even the last 5 years, it continues to drop. So yeah, you can like muscle through it, but there's, we use centers of influence, and how do we, build relationships that people tell us when there's something going on with companies that they know about that would be good opportunities for us to pursue. And so it's a relentless effort on really trying to, fish or whatever, or hunt for deals that would be good for our business. And it does take effort. It takes training. It takes a little bit of time, but the fruit from it is significantly better.
Yeah.
Better deals, bigger deals, bigger, you get to pick and choose on which ones are, that you really target and spend your effort towards. Because, we have a big focus on growing the size of our average revenue as well. And so that was a big focus as well, because we wanted to continue to go up market and serve the mid-market.
So coming in, your biggest change was putting that sales engine in place. Did they have any salespeople at that point in time, or was it all owner-led?
No, it was, they had three. They had three outside salespeople. Yeah. Yeah.
Outside salespeople for $2 million MSP is a lot.
Yeah, it was 19. There was only 19 employees at the time. And so when I took over, we had three salespeople. There was one that had a lot of potential. Another one was a great guy, but it was not a right fit. And one he was just a mismatch. Yeah. And, so, it was one of those, starting to coach and train them to see where they were actually going to land. And then, being able to mature that one guy who's, become a superstar, and we've added other people as we've gone along.
Okay.
So I did, in the first couple of years, first 3 years, or I would say, I was involved with a lot of sales, but the last 2 years, I'm not as involved. I've trained the people, I've coached them. We talk through deals all the time on how do we, structure the deal, or how do we communicate with them, and then teaching them how to use the people in the organization to get the deal further down the road. Does it need a technical lead? Does it need the leader, the CEO, the title to come in, or does it need the virtual DCIO, which we call a strategic technical advisor. To come in and actually help build that relationship as well. Just, and that's what, the realm of the methodology I teach for outside sales.
So break this down for us a little bit, because I know the way you approach this is different than a lot of what I see in the MSP space.
Right.
With your sales engine, and it's different. And
because
what I see a lot in the MSP space is, just the way you described it initially, right? It's like there's SDRs, they're doing outbound cold calling.
That's right.
Maybe there's some email, some LinkedIn, maybe some direct mail as a supplement to that. It sounds like you guys have kind of taken a different approach to that. So break that down a little bit.
Yeah. So, part of this is I'm a sales guy. I was an outside salesperson. I did this. This is what I did myself. So those first, 6.5 years that I was at the first MSP, I was doing this. I built the system. I modified the system. I did a lot of sales training myself. And then, I executed on this and building out a COI process and really honing in on how it was really effective. I mean, in those last 5 years that I was there, I mean, I never sold under $100,000 in MRR annually. And this is back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the economics of that today, I mean, it could be double, so it was one of those that, and I kept looking at going up market, how to refine my skills from that standpoint, how to, because, in the mid market, one of the things is that the buyer is a lot more sophisticated. So there's a lot more decision makers, and how do you work through that whole process? So, I took that same methodology that I did, that I learned and I did myself. I mean, I could have cold called, but it wasn't effective. It just, over the long term, it is not effective. To get into the size deals that you wanted, I targeted people, or targeted size companies and tried to get into them in a strategic way versus just trying to, it really, if they accidentally find you, or, you catch them at the right time, or they're reaching out, I'm reaching out to them. That also meant that there was fewer people in the deals. If somebody's reaching out to you, they're also reaching out to 2, maybe even 3 other MSPs.
Yeah.
When I'm hunting in the right way and targeting certain accounts, I may be the only person in the deal, or there might be somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So it was rare. It was rare that I had a lot of competition.
So when you talk about COIs or centers of influence,
Mm-hmm.
are you really focusing on centers of influence as referral partners? So like, were you outreaching to people that were already working with the types of clients that you wanted to work with?
Yes, and so anybody that called on the same type of the same type of person that I wanted to talk to, I was willing to talk to them. But it's a process in itself too, is evaluating how they prospect, what kind of relationships that they have. And I didn't really care if they sold janitorial supplies, right?
Yeah.
But if they had a really good relationship with a CFOs, and they were a well-respected person that you could tell that had built trust, that was a person I wanted to meet with.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't that I was looking necessarily for introductions. I was looking for pieces of information that was happening inside of companies that were good indicators that they might be open to having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they moved, maybe they have a new CFO, maybe, all these kind of different things that are I was specifically targeting and asking for, and then I was strategically going after them. And if you build a big network too, is from the standpoint is people start referring you a little bit, so it's like one of those, like, hey, I talked to Brian, I had coffee with him last week. He's somebody you might want to get a hold of.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those, and then I would meet with them again, and they go, hey, I mentioned your name to somebody the other day. So I would call on them, and it would turn into something. I kept control. I think introductions that everybody talks about, warm introductions, like where somebody calls on your behalf. Those are fantastic to get. They're the best. Yeah. They're hard to get. And then also too, you're putting the responsibility for outreach in somebody else's hands. So you're losing control of that. And that person, if you think about it, if you sit in their shoes, they've got tons of other things to do. They're not thinking about you. They've got a list of things, and their boss is asking them different things. Or, if they're running the company, it's their employees. So, I mean, I always thought, for me, it was always, if I can keep control, it's better, because I'm worried more about Brian than anybody else out there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like most of your outbound activity was not necessarily connecting directly with prospects. It was connecting with potential partners. Do I
Yep.
have that right?
Yeah. I spent probably 2/3 of my time connecting with outside partners
With
and a
partners.
third of my time actually going after companies.
Okay, got it. And so there was a balance there, but most of the time was being spent finding partners and then building those relationships with
That's
those partners.
correct. Part of it too is teaching them what you wanted as well, right?
Mhm.
And so it's if they had great relationships, it was they don't know this process, right? And
Yeah,
so they have to be taught. And so when you teach them, then they understand how it works, and then you start getting better leads. So those
yeah,
warm and hot leads.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
and
part
so
of
it
that is them understanding what you do, how you work, the triggers that they might hear that tell them, oh, these guys need to talk to Brian,
Yes, that's right. And
right?
and the thing of it is you got to break it down to simple terms that that they can relate to as well, right?
Yeah,
They're adding a bunch of employees, so they got a new contract and they're in a big growth stage. And it's like that, so I'd simplify it from that standpoint. It's not, hey, are they going to upgrade their firewalls or their server infrastructure or whatever it is. They need to go Office 360. That it was never the technical stuff. It was more about what is going on inside the business. They have a brand new CFO. That CFO is going to want to put their thumbprint on everything. So they're going to look at all the contracts, especially IT, from the standpoint of it's usually one of the biggest line item expenses, reoccurring expenses that a business has. So of course, they're trying to see that if they're getting the best value
yeah,
out of that relationship. So it's, and on the flip side too, from a customer service standpoint, if they're switching CFOs, you need to make sure that relationship is really tight and get in front of that CFO to show the value of what you guys, what the MSP is doing for the company.
yeah. So it's now. So sorry, I have a bunch of questions circling in my head because I think it's really important for people to understand how you approach this process.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the times, so those third of prospects that you were working, were
2/3.
most of those
Oh yeah, the
coming,
third. Go ahead.
were most of those coming right directly out of your center of influence network?
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
Because you got to think
that's
about it. I
awesome.
think about this is like if you cold call, 1 out of 100 will answer, and you might get a meeting,
Maybe.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like one of those when you look at centers of influence, it's not 1-to-1 ratio either.
Yeah.
So I mean, sometimes you meet with a COI and they have nothing, they know nothing that's going on, and that's
Right.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So it might take 3, different COI meetings to like figure out that, hey, here's a clue of something that I need to go after. I mean, I think everybody goes into COIs is like, I'm going to go meet with the COIs and I'm going to walk away with 3 leads.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fantasy world, so it's and so it's one of those, there is time, and there's also maturing that relationship too, from the standpoint that they're willing to give it to you. The first time they meet with you, you're still a stranger.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that has always stuck with me about building relationships is they don't require intensity, they require presence and time.
Agreed.
Right. So if you go in hot in an initial referral partner interview and they can just tell that the only reason you're talking to them is to get referrals,
Oh yeah.
it's not going anywhere. Right.
No.
And so it's, you have to have a process, steps that you're following,
Yep.
but building relationships isn't linear. And so you have to have this ability to adapt and identify, hey, what does this person need, or what do I need to do to continue to move in this relationship forward and build it? How do you approach that with your reps, right? Like, so how do you teach them this process where it's like, hey, here's how many COIs you should be working. Here's how do you categorize them as A, B, C, and
Yep.
give A more attention than C's?
Yes.
How do you approach that? No.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, all of that. And so it's a methodical kind of way of doing it. Cause I mean, the way I kind of equate it to is it's a sales process. You don't walk into your FTA and go, you're here to buy. I mean, here's the contract and sign up right away because we're the best in town.
Mhm.
There's this maturation of that relationship to get them to trust you, to you building respect, and to get them to the point that you've won over their business, right? Same thing with the COI. Is there's a whole our sales process is 6 steps, right? And so in the COI, there's also multiple steps into it as well. And then it's also, like you said, the A, B, C, and D is evaluating those different COIs, just like you would a potential prospect of, these are going to be a good fit. No, they're not going to be a good fit. And here's the reason why they're not, and this one's going to be a good fit. And here's why. And then also the frequency you're going to meet with them as well too. And what can you bring to them? All those kind of different things. So there's this calculus that kind of goes through your head as you're actually doing this. And that's where I was saying it's been pretty methodical on, how you run this whole process, and it's, and people go, well, man, that's a lot of time. Right. But also, so is cold calling.
Yeah.
3-4 hours a day, so I mean, it's like, how do you want to spend your time through this whole process too? And also, if somebody, are they a bad COI because they're a bad person? I mean, obviously there's some of that, but typically it's just not a match, right? They're a good person. You don't prospect the same way. You don't call them the same clients, yada, yada. But you know what? That person, what's it, the Dunbar number? That person has 150 relationships that are close to them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've had, coffee with somebody 2 or 3 times. 2 or 3 years later, I get a referral from them because I, sat down and just talked to them about, hey, we do IT. This is what we do, yada, yada. What do you do? Hey, this is great. This has been great. I'm glad to get to know you. Obviously, it's like, I'm not calling them back because they're not, a natural fit, but you never know who they have a barbecue with, or they switch jobs or something like that. So, building that relationship and building that network, it's not futile. Talking to the same receptionist, 4 dozen times. I mean, I think that's kind of a little bit of insanity.
Yeah. It's the other thing I find too is sometimes I might categorize somebody as a C or a B, and they become an A, right?
Oh,
or,
yeah.
or I think they're going to be an A, but then they turn out to be a C, and that's okay.
That's fine.
But you got to let the relationship build. And like, I had a call today with the referral partner. Things have changed in his business, right? And so, so we caught up on where things were, and it's like, oh man, you've kind of shifted. There's more alignment here than there was before.
Correct.
And so we have to approach these like any other relationship.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people are impatient, and so they don't give this process the time and the attention it needs to actually work.
Correct. Yeah. And because there is, I think, a lot of thought put into it and making sure that you're doing it. Cause, sometimes, dialing 50 people, it feels like you've done more work than if you've had coffee with 2 people.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that 50 number looks awesome on a sheet of paper, right? For that day, versus 2 people that you've actually spent, a little bit of time with, and like one's potential, and one, you were just a really nice person. But over time, I'm telling you, those relationships work.
Is there a number of COIs that you look for your salespeople to have in their network?
Yeah, it's one of those. You kind of talk about A's, and people do float between A, B, and C all the time, depending on cycle of the business, or, whatever. It just, sometimes it's a business gets overwhelmed and they're not hunting for other business. There's I was taught a long time ago, like if you get a magic of 12 A's, that you're pretty much a rock star. It's one of those, having 12 A's is almost, it's like a mirage, or something it's really hard to achieve. Just because people's lives change quite a bit, and so you're always kind of evaluating them. But I mean, I was always trying to meet, a couple people, new people every week, and try to just keep adding to it. And and you just never know. I mean, it's you find out pieces of information talking to people and having a cup of coffee, and it's just as cheap too. I mean, like a cup of coffee is not, I mean, of course, some coffee is getting expensive now. Get the drip. The drip coffees is still always like $4 or, cheaper, Lattes, on the other hand, I mean, you could go broke doing those.
So you have a book coming out about this process, right?
Yeah. So I have, I'm in the middle of writing it right now. Going through the editorial stage, and it should be coming out I'm hoping in the next few months.
Cool.
Yeah. Wow. And so I have a couple chapters just on what we're talking right here on prospecting, and one specifically on centers of influence.
Yeah, cool. I just, your approach just resonates so much with me, because all the MSPs I talk to, the big focus is on prospect rather than center of influence. And
yes,
I think so many of them would be much better off spending most of their time on center of influence.
There's a lot of irony in the MSP space. So sometimes, like we sell, like we do email campaigns, right, to try to get somebody to respond to, set up an appointment or whatnot, and then we also sell spam filtering at the same time.
Yeah. So
we're sending out cold email blast, and then also selling the product that stops it as well.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm like, is that irony or hypocrisy or what? I don't know what it is, but it's one of those.
Yeah, exactly. So what we talked a bit about sales. Let's shift gears to marketing a little bit. And most of the MSPs I talk to talk about lead gen, right? My problem's lead gen. I need more top of funnel. You've really used marketing more for brand validation and trust building. How has that supported your sales process? What activities are you doing, and how has that supported the sales process?
Yeah, so we do all the kind of standard things. We don't do email campaigns. We'll do, some customer relations campaigns, but we do, quite a bit of LinkedIn. And then, we have our website, and we post on all kinds of different social medias. And it's what we're trying to be is relevant, for the time of like what's going on, to validate what we're trying to talk about. We're doing a lot with, kind of modern workspace, and like, what does that mean? And, the AI stuff. But what we feel is marketing should support sales. It should support the brand of the company. And so when somebody goes to our website to look for us, or they go on our social media posts or watch videos or whatever it's going on, is like, yeah, these guys are real people doing real work, and it's a real company. And it's just, building that brand and that, authority in the space. Yeah. Do we get web leads that come in? We do. But we can really consider those as, kind of gravy. We don't, it's not something that we count on, because I mean, frankly, they're going to send it to us and 2 or 3 of our competition as well. Yeah. So I think it should do that. And, and it's one of those, I hear in the MSP space all the time. It's like, well, the web leads that we're getting, they're not qualified. That's web marketing. I had a software as a service company too, and it's just one of those, like, you can't control who's filling out that form, and they're going to do it despite whatever you put on there. If they want to fill it out, they're going to fill it out.
Yeah.
And so, and especially bots and all kinds of stuff, so you just got, it's, you can work on honing that in, but it's still, it's still going to be there for all the marketing people out there. I hope, Tim, that gives you a little bit of support.
Yeah. Well, it's, it sounds like you guys are creating a lot of content.
Yes.
With your COI approach to sales, I'm assuming, are your salespeople reposting all that content on their personal profiles as well?
They do. I mean, they do some, but we're, we put out quite a bit. We try to put out, a few a week. And so, sometimes I'm not bad, sometimes I'm bad about reposting it, but we do try to make concerted efforts towards doing that.
That's helping support as you're outreaching to centers of influence and they go to check you out. That content is helping build credibility. It's like you said, oh, these guys
Correct.
are real.
That's right.
It's not like they go to your website and it looks like something from 1990 or your last social post was 8 months ago.
That's right.
That doesn't give people a real warm and fuzzy feeling. So
no, you have to be very active.
The marketing that you're doing on the front end is helping build that credibility, trust, authority. And in the sales process, if you guys have content that speaks to a specific prospect problem,
yes,
you can leverage that, right?
100%. We do that all the time. So it's like one of those where, when we're working on marketing, it's what are people talking about? What do they want to be engaged about? What are our customers asking about? Because if our customers are asking for it, prospects are asking for it, it's relevant. And then that's how and that's why I was saying marketing keeps us relevant. And it's something you constantly have to keep working on. Yeah. And so it's not that, we don't do marketing. We do a lot of marketing, but it's just in this realm of, really validating the brand, boosting the brand. We still want to be, top of the searches or, and we're doing a lot with, AEO too on, so the search, so when we get into, all the generative AI stuff and somebody's looking it up that, we pop, our articles pop up. We do some blogs and we do some articles and all this kind of stuff to be thought leaders in our space. Because one of our goals was always to be, the dominant IT managed service provider in our area, and to do that means that you have to have authority in the space. And so we're constantly working on that, on building that image.
Yeah. Brian, one of the things you mentioned earlier, I want to dig into a little bit before we wrap things up. You had talked about moving up market, right? So initially you were working with smaller clients. Mm-hmm. You wanted to start to work with larger clients. And I know that you guys, you've been able to increase average MRR per client from, a couple grand to close to 10 grand.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. So what did you guys have to change in your positioning, your sales process, your delivery model to make that work?
So on the sales process side, is like still going with the COIs, is helping your COIs know the type of companies that you're targeting, right? Yeah. And there's tricks on how to do that, to make sure that they're targeting it the right way. But you're also looking at your, they call it, the ICP. Mm-hmm. I kind of call it, I use the targeted customer profile, because what I say targeted is because that target changes. Because so like if you're at $2,000 average revenue right now, you would need to get to 4. So you need to target accounts that are around that, $4,000 or $5,000, right? But so once you start moving that up, your average revenue changes as well. So it's going to be at 3. So that target needs to change and move up as well, of like the companies that you're going after. Because it's like one of those, I've said this many times, it's like you can have a $10 million MSP. There's multiple ways to get there. And I'll give you a couple of examples. It's like, just for round numbers, it's like you could have 80 customers paying you $10,000 a month, or you could have 400 paying you $2,000 a month.
Yes.
The math is the same. The companies are completely different. And so it's always looking to go up that market and how do I scale? And then also there's a danger too of taking on a whale, that could sink your company too.
Right. Yeah.
And so none of our customers are over, I think one is right at 8%, but we don't have anybody that's over that 8% mark. And I've always watched this. In our first MSP, we got one that was a whale. We learned the lesson the hard way. So we kept inching our way up to make sure that we could consume these, customers. We could support them. They would have a good experience, as we continue to grow. So, that's where, when you're dealing with COIs and you're trying to, and you can tell them the kind of companies you're looking for, because in a COI meeting, they're going to go, hey, there's a new barbershop down the street that's just opening up. That might be a good target. And I'm going to go, thanks for telling me that. I'm going to write it down, but I'm not calling. Right.
Yeah.
But or it could be saying, hey, this medical practice is moving. I'm like, oh, do you know the practice administrator? So it's just one of those where I'm filtering through the accounts that we're going to target and call and get more specific with. And so that's a big thing with COIs. Cold calls, I guess you can kind of do that, but it's usually just a cold list and somebody's just running down it, and their job is not to target accounts, it's to hit a number. So, so it's a big difference in how we prospect. We have fewer meetings, because they're targeting the right type of customer that we're going for. Our FTAs are longer, and because we're spending time, these are somebody that we think could be a really good possibility for us. They hit all the certain metrics. So we're going to really spend time with qualifying them out and spending.
So did your sales cycle, as you went up market, did your sales cycle get longer?
It can. It can, but still, not that much longer.
Yeah.
I still talk to a lot of MSPs, and they still have, it maybe changed at 30 days or something like that.
Yeah. So not significantly.
Mm-mm.
You just had to have
and also too, if you go up market, there's fewer competition.
Yes.
But you have to be able to serve them. Because
are you guys doing co-managed?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So as you went up market, how much of your business is co-managed versus fully managed?
Probably close to 50-50.
Okay. Yeah, so fair amount. Because as you go up, right, as they get larger, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to have internal IT people.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like the accounts that we have, quite a few of them do have internal. A lot of them have internal IT. The contracts are bigger. And if you know how to work with them, the relationship's better. They're less noisy,
Less noisy. But here's the interesting thing too, though. Do you find the positioning on co-managed is different? The messaging is different because in most cases you're talking to an IT person instead of a business owner that doesn't really understand IT, right?
So that's where, having a really good sales process that can go into that mid-market of where you have to get the business leaders involved with the meeting.
Yeah.
And so, and also you're working with an IT manager, and you can't break respect with any of those different people.
Right.
So there's it's a nuanced way on how to sell to those different people and get them all in the same room, because that IT person most of the time is not the decision maker. They can tell you no, but they can't tell you yes. Yeah. And so how do you get to that CFO or CEO or the ops manager without breaking bonding rapport with that IT person?
Yeah.
So
but you need the IT person to even get.
It can work a multiple of ways. You always want to enter at the top and then you work your way down, because it's easier to be introduced if you're talking to a CFO to the IT manager than to the IT manager to the CFO. Now, that's in a perfect world, right? And so all of this, each deal is done a little bit different way. We talked to a lot of IT managers, and a lot of them are really good friends, and because you build that relationship with them, that you're there to help their job. Because it's one of those where as IT has gotten a lot more sophisticated, or yes, it's sophisticated, and there's a lot more specialties.
Yeah.
The generalists just
They can't know everything.
They can't know everything.
Yeah.
And that's
it's
how
the same as marketing.
And so you have to learn to partner with these people. I mean, the contracts are always bigger, and the margins are better. I mean, honestly, they're better and they're less noisy. And then you have somebody, an advocate on the other side too, that understands what you're doing. And so usually the problems get resolved quicker. Yeah. But it does take relationship management.
But the way you sell co-managed is different than fully managed. Like that process and how you're communicating and messaging is different.
So the sales process is the same. It's a methodical sales process from that standpoint, because
you message and communicate is different.
Correct. So, I mean, and that's how, you learn the different positions and how to communicate to the different positions and how to deconstruct a big deal where you have multiple decision makers, because each, in our sales process, it's a 6-step process. You have the agenda, that's just formalizing what the meeting's going to be about, and get an agreement. You have impact. A lot of people talk about pain. So pain is a symptom of something going wrong. So, on our body sometimes, like we have, our quad is hurting, but it's actually something in our foot that's actually causing it, right? So what you're trying to do is, whatever the pain is, you have to get to what's the impact. What is the impact to the business? What's the time and money? And typically, what's the personal impact to that person that is affecting the way that they do business or something like that. And so the one thing you got to know is in a complex sell, each person has their own pains and impacts. Yeah. Just because the IT guy has an impact doesn't mean the CFO has the same impact. They see the world everybody sees the world different. The IT person is making sure the infrastructure is working, technology. Accounting's on money, right? The CFO, the operations person is that the people can work. So they all look at a problem through their lenses. And so you have to be able to deconstruct that and talk to each one of those people individually to get to the true impact.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This has been great, man. Brian, I really appreciate you taking the time. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question, which is, knowing what you know now, is there anything you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think I would do differently, for sure, is, I didn't have faith when I first joined. I was just like one of those kind of thrown to the wolves, and I didn't have faith in my process that would actually work in the sales. And so I, didn't teach as much as I should have fast enough, and just really gotten them in deeper. I think we would have grown faster than we did already. And so it was like one of those that, being a sales guy, I did lead a different company, but coming back and, starting teaching my process and stuff like that, it was like, it really, really worked. And, I wish I would have taught it, and I wish I would have, kind of why I'm doing these podcasts now is taught more people about it, because there's a lot of MSPs out there that, they could use this kind of skill set that I have, and, the methodology that I have to grow their MSPs faster.
Yeah. That's cool. I appreciate you taking the time, Brian. Where can people connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best way, man. I'm on there. I'm starting to, I'm posting quite a bit. So communicate with me. I love people reaching out. So that is the best way.
Okay. We'll make sure that gets in the show notes, but it's Brian Strong, and it's Brian-Strong at the end of the LinkedIn URL. So connect with them, there. And then also, if you want to check out 10 Hats, you can do that over at 10hats.com. But Brian, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And those of you that are watching, listening, I appreciate you as well. If you're feeling stuck in the marketing maze, you're not sure what's working, what to focus on next, go check out our free marketing engine scorecard at marketingenginescorecard.com. It takes less than 2 minutes and will help you really evaluate the 9 areas of building a supercharged marketing engine so you get clear direction on exactly what to fix first. So till next time, take care.